What's going on, everybody? Corey here, and this is my February wrap up. I guess so. I did a mid month wrap up because if you didn't watch that video, I read a book a day or finished a book a day. Read a book a day. I read 29 books. So basically, it's supposed to be finishing a book a day for the month of February. But I did end up reading ahead a little bit, so I didn't actually finish a book a day because my last book was ended on the day before was my last book that I had read. So on February 27th, but that was my 29th book of February. Um, it was an interesting month. I read a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have normally read. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't like. Some of them were full standouts that I wasn't expecting to like or love. Um, but like I said, I've got 29. I'm going to put up some images from Fable because I don't want to go over the entire list, but I do want to go over some of the standouts for me. And some of these were in the last video, and then some of these are a little bit newer. So, uh, first up in the month of February, that was a bit of a standout, was Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I'm a huge Blake Crouch fan. I discovered this, I think it was last year when I picked up Pines, and I'm just kind of slowly reading through his whole catalog of work. So I picked up Upgrade. It was definitely different. It wasn't as good as Pines or as Dark Matter for me, but it was enjoyable. It had some points where it kind of slowed down a little too much. But overall, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the whole idea of this whole people are doing upgrades to themselves or enhancing themselves or other things, making like genetically modified just anything, and that's really like the government has cracked down. It's like, hey, this isn't legal. Um, which like I'm not saying like I'm not trying to make this political, but the whole like, hey, like you guys can't do this. You can't just like create these like incredibly like enhanced fighting machine people and things like that. And finding out like from our main character, like his mom was big in that world of modifying food or plants and caused this major like pandemic basically. That wiped out a large chunk of the world population. So, really interesting story. There's a lot going on with it. I really enjoyed it. Next up from Blake Crouch, I also read Famous, which was very different than his other books that I've read. And this is following our main character who resembles quite a bit or quite strongly a celebrity. And he decides, you know what? Screw it. I'm done with being normal. I'm going to be this actor. And he moves and starts basically impersonating this actor. That's pretty much the whole book. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. I did enjoy it. Again, it was very different than Blake Crouch's other work. Um, but I had a lot of fun with it. Another one that I read was Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. I'm a huge Stephen Graham Jones fan. Some of those things hit differently than others for me. My Heart is a Chainsaw, I actually rated a lot lower than I feel like a lot of people do. Um, it just took me way too long to get into it. Um, and I hated the main character. But in Mapping the Interior, this is it's such an interesting story because it's like I said in my review, it's just one line. It's like, this is a story about a young boy that misses his dad. That's the story. And it's touching, it's heartbreaking, it's scary when it needs to be scary, but it's so good, and it's only like 100 and I want to say it's like 130 150 pages, so super quick read. That's what a lot of these were in the month of February, is typically quick reads. You will notice that the ones that I'm ranking a bit higher are slightly bigger books, depending, because I read a lot of those Amazon originals that are like 30 to 60 pages too, which we're not going to get into an argument on what counts and doesn't count. I'm not reading 300-page plus books to try to do a book a day. That's not happening. I'm a slow reader. Let's see what else. Demon Song by Kelsey Yu. This is something I got in a Nightworms box and that monthly subscription. And I kind of looked at it when I first got it. I was like, I don't care about this. And I put it on the shelf. I'm like, I'll get to it eventually. And then I did this, and I'm like, hey, that's a short book. Let me pick that up and read it. And that was, again, it was another book I was not expecting to enjoy. And I rated it, I want to say I rated it a 4 or 4.25 or something like that. Um, really ended up enjoying it. And it's kind of, we get a story inside of a story, essentially. Because our main character, she is kind of uprooted from her life in the States, and they go over to China, and she picks up her and her mom are living in like the Chinese opera house, and she picks up the book that the current play is based off of and starts and like is reading through it, and it's like having flashes, and it's a really interesting take on the Crossroads story, if you're familiar with that. And I don't want, if you're not, I don't want to spoil it, but if you're familiar with the whole like Robert Johnson at the Crossroads, it has a very strong feeling of that, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't something I was expecting to enjoy. Let's see, what else did I read? Um, Coffin Moon was the last book I read of the month, and I was working on that through a few days, so I was reading that on top of everything else I was reading, and it surprised me because it takes place like in the 70s. We're following this Vietnam vet. You know, he's back, he's adjusting to life, he's working in a bar, but he's had a lot of change. You know, he's come back from Vietnam, and he's also got his wife's sister's daughter, so his niece is now living with him and his wife, and things get a little intense. It's a little bit of a road trip story at one point where our main character is going with I believe her name is, I believe Julia, or Julie is the niece's name. I don't remember. It's been a bit since I've read it, um, and my memory's not good. But they're going through and seeking vengeance on the road. And this is also a vampire book. So I've been on vampire kicks. I've been trying to find more vampire books to read. But Coffin Moon by Keith Rawson was so good. Um, it's one that I think I got it in an Aardvark box, and it's definitely one that if a really nice edition were to come out, I'd probably upgrade. But I really enjoyed it. I kind of figured I would. Part of it, like I said, it's 70s, so that's part. Like anytime when it gets a little bit time period older, I get a little nervous. Like, why are they going to incorporate it into the story? Um, but it's right up my alley. I like things that take place in the real world. That's why I don't read fantasy, or a lot of, like, I read urban fantasy because it takes place in this time. So, Coffin Moon, 70s vampire story, a revenge story. Great book. I don't remember why I rated it. I don't think I rated it quite a 5, but it was superb. And then my last big standout, and I have been singing its praises to everyone that I can. And it's put me on a huge kick of this author. But I got an arc of We Burn So Bright by TJ Klune. And I can tell you the character of that. It's Don and Rodney. So we follow this couple, Don and Rodney, in the end of the world on a road trip across America. And it is one of the sweetest stories that I think I've ever read. There's so many moments where I laughed out loud, just like cracking up laughing reading it. Um, Moments where I cried because it's such a touching story. Moments of holy crap, what's happening? And this is just, this is a novella. It's like 150 pages. But I got an arc of this, and it's the first thing I ever read by TJ, and I absolutely loved it. This is 5-star read for me. Um, and it's one of those, like, there's not a lot. I don't feel like, as much as I love horror and I love a lot of things I read, I'm a bit of a 5-star horror. Um, but, like, this is a book that's really stuck with me. Um, And I 100%, that's TJ Klune's writing. He writes characters that, even though myself, I am a straight man, I identified so much with like Rodney in this. And I think that's a special thing, in my opinion, to be able to write for like someone who's not part of like this community, of the LGBTQA plus community. That I can look at a character in that community and say, I identify with this person because it's just kind of how they are. And I'm not a person who even cares about identifying with characters. Like, you can make your characters awful, you can make them great, you can make them whatever. I don't care as long as they're well written, or what I feel is well written. And Rodney is just this. He's this grumpy old man, but he's sweet. He loves his husband so much, and the struggles that they've been through in their life. They're in their 70s now, and they're traveling across the world or across the country, and it's just such a sweet story. And I sat here at my desk reading, just bawling my eyes out at certain points. And this has put me on a TJ Klune kick. So actually, in the month of March, I've read two other TJ Klune books. Yeah, I think it's just two. Um, and I get the same feeling from all those. I've picked up pretty much his entire Tor published catalog. I don't know if I'll go into any of his indie stuff yet, but I've picked up so much of his work, and I've pre-ordered We Burn So Bright, so I can have that physically on my shelf because I enjoyed it that much. Um, but yeah, that's a gist of what I read in February. Like, I had a lot of things that weren't great, um, and some things that were fantastic. And I read a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have. I also read the Murderbot Diaries up through book 4, or the fourth story, and those kind of went back and forth. I didn't care for the first book, though the characters were a lot more likable than in the TV show. Second book I liked. Third book I didn't. Fourth book I liked. Um, Currently on the fifth one, I think, that I'm listening to. So, and I also did a lot of these as audiobooks too, so I could read while I was working and doing things. But yeah, that was February. It was crazy. I'm never doing this again. I'm never going to plan finishing a book a day for a month. Um, it was fun but stressful. It also led to going into March not finishing a book a day felt very weird. Um, but I don't want to fill my life with just novellas and just short stories and whatnot. So I was craving finishing a big book. So currently, I've got a couple things I'm reading. I am reading a short story collection, which is an arc, but I'm also reading Persepolis Rising. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Persepolis Rising, which is part of the Expanse series. So that's my big one, and I feel like I finished two T.J. Klune books: House in the Cerulean Sea and The Bones Beneath My Skin, in the month of March, and both of those were 5-star for me. So, uh, yeah, that's where I'm at now. But that's the video. Did you do any fun challenges in February? Were you stupid like me? What are you currently reading? What were your standouts in February? I'd love to know. And let's have a conversation down below in the comment section. And if you're stuck around this long, thank you so much. Um, if you like what you see, subscribe. I'm still getting used to doing this whole booktube thing, and I'm not very good at it. Um, but we'll see where it goes. I'm really bad at uploading. I'm horrible at recording and uploading. But yeah, that is what it is, and I'll catch you in the next video.